Welcome to my channel, INTJ Island. Today I'm going to talk about earning your present as an INTJ. I've had a tough week this week with some dental issues. I'm still on antibiotics, but I have now been able to cut way back on the pain medications, and hopefully I'm well on the way to recovery. Back in the days of ancient Egypt, the average life expectancy was somewhere in the 20s, and it was mostly because of dental problems. They ground their grain with sand, and it got into the food and destroyed their teeth. The Romans had a similar problem. Modern dentistry is one of the major contributors to our longer lifespans today, that coupled with the discovery of antibiotics. Last evening I was reading the story of how Dagny and Hank Reardon were standing on the platform at a train station in Cheyenne, Wyoming, as they were getting prepared to take a ride in the engine of a freight train that was making the very first run on the John Galt line up to Wyatt's Junction, Colorado. In 2002, when my wife and I were heading out to St. Louis for her second conference for her webpage of Dottie's Weight Loss Zone, we spent a night in a motel in Cheyenne. In the morning, I went outside and took some pictures, and the two things I noticed first were the wind and the trains. It is a flat country, and there is little to stop the wind when it gets moving, and trains are constantly passing through, making their way to all parts of the country. As the John Galt line was being built, there were a lot of side things going on. They were working on their own areas, Hank Reardon making the metal for the rails and the brand new bridge design, and Dagny getting the rail laid and everything set to run a brand new line to replace the old Rio Norte line that was being taken out of commission. The government, the papers, public opinion, the entire country, it seemed, were against them, as unnecessary roadblocks came at them like hurdles in an Olympic race. The hurdles were not small, and they would have stopped lesser people cold. But the rail line was installed, and it became operational on time on July 22nd. A line in the book that hit me was when Dagny felt that all those hard-working days of the past all came together on this day, and they were done with their work and had earned their present. This day was theirs because they had earned it. Now they could sit back in the cab of the engine and pull 80 freight cars behind them at 100 miles per hour for the entire 300-mile run and simply enjoy the thrill of victory. Several aspects of this story at this point were things I could relate to. Many times I've had to break loose from the restraints of other people's shortcomings, as Dagny did when she broke free of the limitations of having to hold up the red tape machine of Taggart Transcontinental Railroad while trying to do a nearly impossible job. She left the company on paper to form her own company, John Galt Incorporated. This allowed her to just focus on the job and get it done on time. The government had been passing laws that undermined Hank Reardon's access to ore and other essentials for making his metal. He found ways to work around the jerks and got the rail and bridge materials manufactured despite the interference at every step of the way. Of course, this is fiction, and the things these people did were on a grand scale. But the idea is applicable to many aspects of life. When I am tackling a large project, the first thing I want to do is for others to get out of the way and let me analyze it. When people are peppering me with their opinions, it just defocuses my thought process. I want to say, and I sometimes do, will you please shut up and let me think? Often working through a problem is like figuring your way through a maze. You come to a junction and have to decide which way to go. If no one is talking to me, I can scan through paths to either a continuation or a dead end quickly. If someone is saying, "Oh, I think you should go this way," it is only a distraction from identifying which is the real way out. It adds another level of difficulty to the project. If two or more are chiming in with their uninformed opinions, it multiplies the difficulty. When I deal with people, I want to go after the ones who know what they are doing. As an instructor, when I was working out the way a circuit worked, I first of all would look at the schematic. If it was not clear from my first inspection, I would pull down my reference books and check the operating characteristics of the components. If I was still unable to puzzle it out, I went to the engineer who designed it and picked his brain. The one thing I didn't want was people around me offering their opinions when they didn't even know as much as I did about the circuit. I was eager to seek out the opinions of experts, but I abhorred the idea of a democratic vote from a group of people who had no idea what was going on. Large projects, like building a rail system, must be broken down into steps. Some of the steps can go on concurrently with other steps, but they all have to be identified, and we must make sure that each step is covered. If I want to guarantee success, I don't leave anything to chance. And when I'm working on my list of necessary steps, I want everyone else to get out of my way and let me think. I will happily let others look my list over after it is done to see if I missed something. I want it to be complete. But if my understanding of the process is going to be able to contribute my best input, I need to be alone while I work it out. The chaos of debate and brainstorming might help to come up with features for a piece of software that might be nice to have, but it is highly unlikely to produce the code that will give you those features. And once I have a plan in place, I want a list of steps and a timeline for the milestones for completing the steps. If I'm writing a book, I want so many words written by such and such a date. I want my research completed by a certain date. The scenario, the outline, and other steps all have timelines connected, so I can measure my progress in both time and completion of the critical steps. For small projects, I may sit quietly by myself and think through the steps that are required. I double-check them in my mind, visualizing doing each step, and then I will dive in and complete the steps. I did this a lot when I was a field service engineer. I had a problem to fix or a modification to install, and before I lifted a wrench or a test probe, I thought it through and created a plan of action. Then I proceeded to execute the plan. When moving towards a goal, it is often like driving to the hoop in basketball. The other side is trying to stop you, and you have to work around their obstacles. You move left or right, pass the ball to a teammate, or you stop and take a jump shot if you are within your range. Tackling a major task is a lot like that. You have a straight line idea of going from where you are to the basket and laying it in. But then problems pop up, and you have to deal with them. Each problem is like a mini project. You analyze it, you find a solution, and form a plan, simple or complex, and you execute it. That will get you back on track for your big project path. Over and over again, as required, you will deal with problems as they come up. The one time I am angry with myself is if a problem comes up that I should have foreseen and I didn't, and so I have to deal with something on the fly that should have been planned for. The bigger the project, the more time and effort it takes to get it completed, the greater the thrill of accomplishment at the end. Like with Dagny and Hank, it isn't the crowds cheering or the pats on the back from others that is the joy you feel in the present that you created from the past hard work. It is your personal knowledge that you did it and you did it right. It was a train ride itself where they found the reward from their past efforts. The noise and the people didn't matter. It was that inner knowledge that they had done a great job and reached their goal. Being the master of your own destiny, whether it is in a big way or a small way, this is where we find our pride for what we do. At the end of the day, I can tell myself, I did this and I did it well. If others like it too, fine. But my toughest critic is myself. And if I am pleased with what I did, I know it is a job well done. Also, if I am not pleased with what I did, no amount of praise will convince me that it was all it should be. I decide whether my efforts were good or bad. If I get a strong disagreement with my evaluation, I then will step back and go over my personal standards to see if they hold up to scrutiny. If not, I will change them. But if they do, I will stand by them completely. As a rule, an INTJ is future-oriented. We think about the future and work towards the future. But an INTJ's life is a lot like climbing. We work like crazy to move up the mountain. But when we reach a goal, we can then stop and take a short rest where we can thrill at the view we have created for ourselves, a beautiful panorama before us. We then move on to our next climb. How do you enjoy the fruits of your labor when your past hard work has handed you a great present? We live for the future, but the present will at times grab us and give us a hug and a pat on the back, or even more. When you earn that thrill, how do you enjoy it? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please click like. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. If you click on the bell, you will also receive notifications when I put up a new video. Thank you for watching. and I'll see you next time.